Allez, allez, toi, cherche-le dans tes dents, la glace. Entre tout ça, là, il doit être là. Il doit...
What you just saw was a part of a piece created by a man named Olivier de Sagassan, and despite what TikTok may have you believe, that was not a video found on the dark web. It is not a satanic ritual, and there is nothing occult about what Olivier does. However, it's almost understandable that people would try to brand Olivier's art in this way because there is something very eerie and uncanny about the work that he does. This particular video went viral when it was released in 2009, garnering almost 6 million views and becoming a staple of the so-called weird side of YouTube. However, when you peel back the curtain, Olivier's work is a lot more than just a strange visual experience. There is a lot of foresight and reasoning that goes on behind the scenes, and there is definitely a method to the madness. His work spans almost 2.5 decades, and I thought it would be interesting to analyze his past, his other work, and why he does what he does. De Sagassan was born in the Congo in 1959, but he was raised in France. Throughout the 70s and 80s, he found interests and passions in multiple different spaces, such as photography, painting, and sculpting. But academically, he was headed in a different direction. He was studying to become a trained biologist, and it was in this process that he learned about the intricacies of the human body. While he was studying, he observed and took part in dissections, transplants, and surgeries, and it was in this time that he began to connect art to biology, believing that art should also be dissected, peeled back, and opened. He believed that this was the only true way to give life to his creations. He continued to work on his pieces, with sculpting being his forte. He started with metal, but eventually he would use clay, mortar, and hay in his sculptures. His main goal was to create something with life, something that could speak for itself, and that wasn't always easy. One fateful day in the late 90s, while he was trying to sculpt, he got frustrated by the lack of life in the work that he was creating. That's when he had a fascinating idea. He actually spoke about this moment, and this is what he had to say about it. June 1998. I am in my workshop. I have been trying for weeks to give life to a sculpture. Suddenly an idea comes to me. I want to immerse myself in the matter. That way, I will be sure to make a lively structure. I place a camera in front of me, surround myself with material that I use to sculpt and paint, and then I begin. My head is a pedestal. I work blindly, with my internal perception as my only guide. I cover my face with a layer of clay, then make a first sculpted face, which I erase rapidly. I try again and again. These masks are movable and transformed at the stroke of the hand. Everything is touch here. My hands explore my modeled face, and my faces feel the deformation of the clay. It spreads across my chest and my limbs, and I feel my body in a way I have never experienced before. This revelation of using himself as the canvas and mixing his experience with sculpting and biology to create an art piece with all the life that he wanted was a huge turning point for Olivier. He was a creator who compared art to living organisms, and now he had conceptualized something that could truly help him express and articulate that. There is a fascinating 8-minute short documentary called Living Matter that discusses Olivier's work, and although it is not that long, it is pretty intense, and I don't think I could actually show you 70% of this documentary because of how graphic it truly is. But what I can show you is Olivier speaking about his transformative work.
Le peintre sculpteur, en peignant, en utilisant son corps, sans le savoir, devenait un danseur. Et d'autre part, les masques qui apparaissaient sur mon visage étaient des masques mouvants, ce qui est tout à fait singulier dans l'histoire du masque, qui d'habitude sont rigides. Et ces masques mouvants plus traduisaient ce que je ressentais intérieurement. Donc là, il y avait vraiment quelque chose d'assez fascinant. Tout masque est un amplificateur de présence. Et lorsque ce masque se répand sur tout le corps avec l'argile, cela a un effet très impressionnant sur votre comportement. Et dans mon cas précis, cela m'amène dans des états proches de la transe.
As you can see, that trance-like state he talks about in that clip can be the eeriest and most uncanny part of his creations, and we can see this consistently throughout his work. It adds an unpredictable nature to his art and makes it almost impossible to tell what he is going to do next. And that's because he doesn't know what he's going to do next. He is always one step behind his own creations, which makes for a chaotic environment that he seemingly thrives in. Olivier continued his work throughout the 2000s and the 2010s, doing hundreds of different performances in dozens of different countries. In this time, he developed the idea of transfiguration and gave us some pretty fascinating iterations of the piece. It wasn't just a man in front of a camera anymore. Sometimes it was done in front of a live crowd, sometimes it was done outside, and sometimes other people were involved. But regardless of how Olivier performed this piece, one thing stayed the same. The people watching couldn't keep their eyes off of him. Here are a few of Olivier's pieces that differed from the original Transfiguration video, but still kept the same energy as their originator. Sous la Lune, or Under the Moon, features Olivier walking through some shallow water near a city with his signature clay mask on. Around halfway through the video, we see him put some hay on top of his head and light it on fire, which creates an interesting but eerie aesthetic. It's one of the few instances you'll see of the Transfiguration piece outside, and it's the only video I've found in this exact environment. It makes it a very interesting outlier in this series and shows us the piece in a new light. The video also comes with a vague but compelling description that reads, "Walking drunk under the moon, feet in the mud, the heart so light." This shows us that it may have been a drunken impromptu video, which is very fitting considering how impromptu the entire series is as a whole. This is a clip that Olivier posted onto his YouTube channel, and it actually comes from a music video by a band called In Legend. The video shows us Olivier as the dictator, and in the clip, we see this character slowly but surely lose his mind in front of his followers. It's interesting to see Olivier actually play a character in this clip, and it's also interesting to see the Transfiguration piece be used in another medium such as a music video. This is something that has actually happened a lot. His work has been featured in other music videos and projects by artists like FKA Twigs, Mylene Farmer, and Ron Frick. It would make sense that Olivier's work could fit easily into the alternative side of art and music, but it's still fascinating to actually see it being implemented, and The Dictator is a great example of that. Ash is a very short video on Olivier's channel that's less than a minute long, but it's fascinating nonetheless. It starts off with Olivier literally burning himself after throwing some dirt and clay onto his face. He then slowly peels back the mask he has created, and we see this up close. It's a harrowing sight for a number of reasons. For one, the actual video is a much higher quality than normal, which emphasizes the eerie nature of the piece, and the fact that Olivier did this in his studio means that we can actually see his other creations. At one stage, he stands side by side with two of his sculptures, and it almost looks like he tried to recreate these sculptures with his actual body. Whether or not that's the case, there is a resemblance, and it's a creepy one. The description of the video adds some vague context. It says the following: "Disfigurement in art is an attempt to get the brain to explore the human face in its strangest and most magnificent aspects. The human face is like a raft from which a tiny part of the universe can look at itself and gaze the world." I could go on and on about Olivier's work. On YouTube, he has over 40 videos, and he has done countless performances and pieces across the world. It's fascinating to see what he's done with the Transfiguration piece. One simple idea and an 8-minute video changed everything for him, and he's turned that idea into a 20-year career. The fascinating mix of sculpting, body art, and social commentary has made this series a compelling enigma that many people have studied, analyzed, and questioned. Some people think it's the pinnacle of alternative transformative art, while other people think it's a man throwing clay on his face. I will leave that up to you, but regardless of what you think, it does not change the fact that Olivier was just a man who wanted to make an art piece that had a bit more life to it, and by God, he did.